Augustine of Canterbury, apostle to the English. He feared the journey. The language was foreign, the people were fierce, and the road ahead uncertain. Yet when God called through Gregory, he obeyed. A single act of courage carried the gospel to a forgotten island at the edge of the world. His name was Augustine of Canterbury, a monk whose obedience changed the destiny of a nation. By the end of the 6th century, Europe was restless. The Roman Empire had long collapsed, and new kingdoms filled the void. In distant Britain, pagan Saxon tribes ruled with sword and superstition. The light of Christ had nearly gone out. From his monastery on Rome's Cælian Hill, Pope Gregory the Great often thought of those lands. He once saw fair-haired English slaves in the Roman market and said, "They are not Angles but angels, if they were Christians." That burden never left him. Years later, now Pope Gregory chose one of his own monks, Augustine, to lead a mission northward to bring the gospel to England. Augustine was abbot of the monastery of St. Andrew in Rome, a man of gentle spirit and cautious temperament. When Gregory commanded him to go to England, he obeyed, but fear quickly followed. The journey was long, the Saxons were rumored to be savage, and the language barrier immense. On the road through Gaul, the party heard reports of danger and turned back to plead for release. Gregory's reply was firm, yet fatherly. "Do not shrink from the labor begun. The greater the toil, the greater the reward." Strengthened by those words, Augustine continued. In AD 597, Augustine and about 40 monks landed on the Isle of Thanet in Kent. The Anglo-Saxon king, Ethelbert, ruled there, married to Bertha, a Christian princess from Gaul. When Augustine requested an audience, Ethelbert met him in the open air, fearing enchantment. The monks approached singing litanies bearing a silver cross and an icon of Christ. They preached simply, "We come to proclaim life and salvation through the eternal kingdom of Christ." Ethelbert was cautious but intrigued. He allowed them to preach freely and gave them a home in Canterbury, his royal city. From that small beginning, the English church was born. Augustine labored with humility. He and his monks lived in poverty, serving, teaching, and praying. Their example softened hearts more than argument could. Soon Ethelbert himself believed and was baptized, the first Christian king in Anglo-Saxon England. Thousands followed his example, filling rivers with converts. Gregory rejoiced in Rome, writing, "From the ends of the earth, voices of praise rise to God." Augustine established churches, ordained clergy, and founded the Cathedral of Canterbury, a Sorrow. Of faith that endures to this day. Augustine's mission was not without pain. The Celtic Christians in Britain, descendants of older churches, resisted Roman customs on the date of Easter and church discipline. Augustine longed for unity but struggled to bridge the divide. He pleaded, "Let us serve one God with one heart." Though tension remained, his efforts laid the groundwork for reconciliation in later generations. Augustine died around AD 604, only a few years after arriving in the land that had once terrified him. Yet in that short span the gospel took root, monasteries spread, scriptures were copied, and missionaries went forth from England to Germany and beyond. The obedience of one fearful monk became the spark of Europe's next great missionary age. In Canterbury, his tomb bore the simple inscription, "Here rests Augustine, first Archbishop of Canterbury, who brought the English nation to God." Law ordered him to go, burdened him with fear, and reminded him of his inadequacy. Grace met him on the road, gave him courage to return, softened pagan hearts, and crowned his obedience with revival. Law said, "You must go." Grace said, "I am with you." Augustine teaches us that obedience matters more than courage, because courage follows obedience. He reminds us that fear does not disqualify faith, it refines it. God calls not the fearless, but the faithful, and he shows us that even the smallest act of yes can echo across centuries. A frightened monk's obedience became a nation's salvation. Closing call to action. Augustine's life asks us, what mission has God placed before you that fear keeps delaying? What step of obedience could light the path for others? Pray today, Lord, give me faith to obey even when afraid. Let your grace go before me, your spirit strengthen me, and your word bear fruit beyond my sight. And remember, the same Christ who turned Augustine's trembling into triumph, who transformed a pagan isle into a beacon of worship, still sends his people today. When God says, "Go," your obedience can change the world.